Yep. Bugling bulls. All right. Well, hey, this is an episode of the Empty Quiver by Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by Blackwidow Bows. Holy smokes, that's a good one. Empty Quiver means Aron Snyder, and a couple months ago, he's the idea guy, right? He always comes up with these great ideas. A couple months ago, he said, "Why don't you give Rod Jenkins a call and set something up with him?" I'll be honest, minute he said Rod Jenkins, I was like, man, that's out of my comfort zone there. Rod shoots and instructs at such a high level, way out of my league, man. So it took me a while to get a hold of him. Right from the beginning of the episode, I said, hey, this is all you, Aaron. Run with it. You'll hear me 3 times as much on this intro as you will in the whole episode, and that was by design. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to Aaron, quiz Rod. I've never heard Aaron so fired up about a guest, be it on Kifaru Cast or on Stickbow Chronicles. Yeah, he was really stoked. Great conversation. Rod was so gracious. And the other thing is, he broke down instructions to a level that even I could understand. And I'll tell you, if I can understand it, buddy, you can understand it, guaranteed. The old forearm, he's got a tip in there about your forearm tension that immediately I tried, and it made a difference. So I was pretty excited even to edit it. I was taking notes when I was editing this episode, and it got my wheels turning. Maybe I'll have to have a line of clinic up out here in northern Idaho. I'd love to get some instruction from Rod, for sure. I think he's going to be out in Oregon this week, next week, something like that. Good conversation. The other reason that you won't hear me on this episode much, and to clear the air, to stop any rumors. Yeah, I live close to Washington, but when you hear me, no, I was not just doing bong hits. And no, I am not a 2-pack smoker two packs a day? Yeah, 2-pack smoker a day, something like that. If you ever heard of an assault bike, you ever go to a gym and they got these assault bikes? Well, yeah, they're an exercise bike that meter runs way too slow. I don't know what the whole deal is with that, but yeah, get on this thing and see how many calories you can do in 3 minutes. I didn't even earn a light beer, and it frickin' jacked my lungs up for 3 days. I don't like assault bikes. So, good stuff. Yep. Sponsors, love this lineup. Selway Archery, the Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, of course, Blackwidow Bows. And I was talking to Toby the other day. They got a big announcement. Blackwidow's got a big announcement coming up, 30 days or something. You'll hear it here. You'll see it on social media. It's going to make life a lot easier. That's right, Blackwidow Bows. Awesome stuff. I'm going to shut up. Enjoy this one. Look in the show notes if you want to get a hold of Rod. I'll have his contact information up there. 3 minutes, 50 seconds of me, and that's it. That's all you're going to hear in the next 2 hours. So enjoy. Roger out. Rod Jenkins, thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Hey, enjoyed it. Glad to meet y'all guys.
Yeah, and you've now virtually met Aron Snyder here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
I've paid attention to you for a long time, Rod. Just when I got into it, you're one of the first names that pops up. For coaches and the history of archery, especially the more recent history, meaning for traditional archery, the last 40 years or so. And anyway, it's an honor to have you on here. It's an honor to virtually meet you. And I've been excited about this because I've got about 1.5 million questions I want to pick your brain about. So hopefully you don't get tired of me by the end of this, because I'm gonna be like a 10-year-old kid asking his dad questions. So I apologize ahead of time.
Not at all. Just expect simple, direct answers.
Well,
Perfect. My
I'll
brain
let you-
works that way.
yeah, Aaron, I'll let you run with it because I'm out of my league here.
Well, I guess, Rod, if you don't mind, I kind of got a list of things I want to run through here. And if I kind of drift off to where you're like, this guy's talking out his ass, then you interrupt me and kind of fix me, and we'll go from there. But, you have been you've coached multiple different national and world champions, and you've also won national championships yourself. Is that correct as far as your pedigree?
Well, I won 3 world championships too. Now, don't leave those out.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
You're
insulting our guest here, Aaron.
Hey,
my bad. Man, my memory's not so good. I fell in a well, eyes went cross, and horse kicked me out next straight. So you've also coached multiple national and world champions as well, though, correct?
Correct.
And then you're pretty crafty, hand-eye coordination. You're pretty good with a gun as well, from what I understand, as far as competitive shooter in general, from what I've heard anyway. And am I hearing things correctly on that?
Yeah, I used to be a pretty decent shooter, but age and your heart beats harder, and it's hard to get those crosshairs as still as he once did. But I'm still good on coyotes at 5 and 6. Yeah, competitive. A rifle's the only thing that I really just naturally do well. I always had to work at shooting a bow well, or a pistol, either one. But I won IPSC nationals, but I had to work at it. And the same thing with archery. But rifle, I kind of just shot well until I got to shoot first rifle, and then I found out that they was in a whole different league, and I had to learn a lot. And I learned a lot about archery from some of the service rifle guys.
Gotcha. So, when I got started with this, I had a background in relatively high level with compound archery. I used a hinge and a back tension style release. I understood
Absolutely.
Form and alignment, which helped me for some of this, getting going. But there was a lot that it was brand new to me, which is why it's so exciting. And one thing that I was able to do was kind of weed through what I found to be kind of BS or bro science or hyperbole, whatever you want to call it, and kind of pick out what I want. And the one thing I watched Traditional Vision Quest, Tom Klum, he helped me a ton. He's a coach here.
Sure.
And he was able to help me a lot with converting over. The one thing I've found is there is a large amount of information online, and I got to say probably 80% of it, that what I've seen is somewhat bad info, from tuning to form and things like that. And one of the things that I've heard you say, and when in doubt, just keep pulling.
Exactly.
Collapsing, it seems like is a big deal. Would you say collapsing is probably the number one issue that most single string bow shooters have, or archers have?
It's a symptom of the number one archery, just lack of control and keeping the important things important. I'm a firm believer in is you execute the shot and not worry about the results so much, because that's what causes all the target panic. When it's about the results, you got a problem. So if you're about execution, which you don't have a collapse if you're executing, that solves the other problem at the same time. If that makes any sense.
And that kind of leads, no, it does. That leads me right into my next question. Was there is a lot of kind of brain talk, scientific, guys are really digging in the weeds with the mental side of things, in my opinion, much further than they should, because the root of all evil is bad form. That's where everything else gets going.
Absolutely.
When you have bad form, Okay, so talk a little bit about that. Do you agree with that? And talk a little bit about that.
I do, and my saying in general is there's not a better mental game than having absolute confidence in being able to execute a shot. There's no better mental game walking up in any kind of pressure and knowing that I can do my job. Now you can, people try all kind of little mental gymnastics to get around that, but if you've got any doubt in your shot, under pressure, that doubt's going to scream to the top every time. So if you can learn and instigate a solid shot sequence every time, and that's your priority, is my shot sequence, what's important to me. And if you can make that the most important thing to you every time, well, then the pressure goes away, because hit, miss, whatever, that's not what you judge success on. It's how well I execute it. And you don't miss many if you can execute, because now your mental game's stronger than everyone else's. I learned that when I wanted to be the next 3E hero, or field hero, actually, is, hey, son, just learn to shoot the bow.
So the one thing I try to explain to people, which goes a lot into what you just said, is why the hell would I worry about missing a shot I haven't taken yet? Like, right. If I'm worried about missing a shot I haven't taken, I've got some serious problems. And to me, you should have you got issues, right? And if you have the confidence to execute the shot before you take it, rather than immediately walking up to it thinking, oh my God, that confidence you have is from building up your form. And I suggest to guys to build up their form by starting out at a close distance, working on alignment, working on tension, things of that nature. What is your suggestion to guys to, like, the number one key to get that form built up, that gets the confidence built up?
Well, I'm a big believer in black belt work and drills, having drills. We tried to institute a list of 7 drills to do and get off target. Now, hitting target's the easy part. It's execution, it's hard. So most guys, all they want to do is shoot the bow and get better. And I try to get to them, okay, well, if I'm doing a clinic in July, NFL, those guys are getting paid millions and millions, and they've played all their life the best they are. And guess what? They're doing drills trying to be better in the basics. They're not out playing the game. They're trying to do drills to get better in the basics. But in archery, we want to play the game, and we do that over and over again. But the problem is the subconscious won't do but one thing, and and the conscious mind won't do but one thing. I said that wrong. The conscious mind won't do anything, and it'll aim. That's all it'll do. You don't know what your bow hand done. You don't know if you were in alignment. You had no checks, because all you were doing was aiming and trying to hit something. So I really try to get guys off the target. I mean, it's the basics of coaching is doing drills. Have y'all guys ever been around any kind of sport that drills wasn't the most important thing you did? I would have loved this.
Every competitive sport I've ever done.
Did drills all the time. Pardon?
I said that any competitive sport I've ever done, they drill the shit out of you.
That's it. I mean, that's it. But somehow in archery, we don't want to do it. We just want to hit stuff. And it even got guys now saying black belt don't work. And it's just they don't understand what we're trying to do, I get guys in the stance drill, trying to get guys getting their shoulders lined up, their head erect, and, in the same position over and over again. And, I can't do this in a tree stand. And I said, well, I get that. Because believe me, I'm all about hunting. That's the reason why I wanted to be as good as I worked to be, is because I'd never miss again. It hurts. But, and I said, yeah, but if you can train the subconscious, even if you don't have time and you have to shoot fast, or you're screaming and sliding on one in there after you cut a bull off, your subconscious still knows what to do, and it will get as close as it possibly can without you having to think about it. That's what drills does for you, and time off target.
So I'm going to chime in with that. You tell me what you think, because I want to make sure I'm giving guys good advice. When guys talk about drills, and one of the things when I talk about target panic, I use the analogy, if you had a 4x4 that was 10 foot long and you laid it on top of the pavement, you could walk across that back and forth and probably never fall off. But if you put that 20 feet up in the air, you put it across the river, you put fear and doubt in your mind. And that is target panic. The farther out the target gets, the farther away something gets, the more stress, the more tension. That's when target panic creeps in. So a drill, for example, would be practicing walking across that while it's on pavement, which is my analogy to blank bale shooting. You're taking pin movement out, you're taking your movement out, and then you practice those drills over and over and over and work your way back farther and farther and farther. You are building a recipe for success, for good form, good confidence, and that way when the fear comes into play, you know you've already done it close up and worked your way back. You're building confidence in it. Is that good teaching? And what would you change on that? And what would your advice be?
Well, we do, and that's a great analogy, the one that I hear all the time. You ever been around kids in the swimming pool, and they on the wading in, they can swim back and forth, but they'll say to others, you can't do that in a deep end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they don't have the confidence to go down there. So that's what I try to do, is do drills to learn how to execute a shot. And then we do a bridge program, and it was developed by Lenny Carndelli, which was one of the great coaches of all time several years ago. And it's, you've got the shot sequence built, but you still don't have any confidence in it. So the bridge, you start out at close range and learning to execute a perfect shot and still aim well enough to hit the target. And then you work yourself back. So what I try to do is two parts: drills to learn, the bridge to develop confidence.
So on the drills, and what you said is 100% true as far as everybody wants to just shoot the target. The one drill that I do on my own, and I say it's a drill, but I'm a huge believer both with a compound and a stick bow in blank bale shooting, is
absolutely.
I put a camera up behind me, I put a camera up beside me, and I put 2 to 3 cameras up, and I put one right at my arrow to make sure I'm keeping tension, that I'm not losing, tension. So one is a slow-mo, basically right at the arrow tip. And then one showing my alignment from the back, and the other one showing, which generally happens, my hand coming off my face, because that's a big problem of mine. And when I say drilling, I am basically working to perfect any issues I have close up, so I don't have any of the other issues that when your subconscious creeps in. And when you get to distance, you see people grip their bow, you see people's hand come across their face, collapse. Those are all form issues. It may be lumped up by multiple people as target panic, but it's form. The form is what got you the target panic. Do you, not to beat a dead horse to death, but what I want to convey to people listening is those drills, I think, are what keeps you from getting target panic, not some voodoo witchcraft mental stability. It's some kind of, it's drilling in good form.
Well, it's definitely not a crutch to try to get by, but, if you still don't know how to execute, a clicker or whatever is going to make you better, no doubt about it. And target panic is a real problem, You're going to get improvement, but the problem is the problem still there, and it's coming back. And most of the time it comes back a second time, it's with a rage, and nobody knows how to get out of it. Where I kind of believe, okay, if you've got the fortitude to make something click, you've got the fortitude to expand and aim and to get to conclusion. Something that happens in the back of the shot after the arrow's already gone, you've got that ability, as well as you've got the ability to make one click. So I really try to teach a guy. You know, I get guys all the time in the clinics, and I feel for the guys, and I've been there. You know, and they'll sneak around because they don't want to say they got target panic. I got a group of 12 or 14 or 15, whatever. Now I got target panic, and I said, yeah, I know. You know, and he said, well, I'm going to need something extra. And I said, no, the cure for target panic is having an absolute solid shot sequence and 100% faith in it. That's the only fix, you know. And I said, and the great thing about it is the cure for target panic is also what creates world-class shooters, solid shot sequence and 100% faith in it. That makes any sense to y'all guys at all?
It does to me. When you're talking about that, like the clicker and what the clicker did for me was basically, one, is a reminder to keep taking, because I don't always fire at the clicker. You know, depending on my body position, how comfortable I feel, how I'm holding, I may shoot, I don't know, an 1/8 inch in front of the clicker. I may shoot just after. It may click. My thing, as long as I'm keeping tension, I really don't give a shit when I fire, as long as I've kept good tension, good form, and it's working out for me so far. Now, when you talk about that clicker, guys start talking about like the open loop and closed loop, for me, I try not to baffle too many people with it, because you're drinking through a fire hose. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, one thing is, and again, I do quotes because I've been around archery a long time, but another one of my favorite archery quotes is, and I think it was Einstein said it, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So, you know, making up a bunch of extra words to add things to it. Are y'all laughing at me or laughing with me? Somebody's got to tell me here.
But laughing with
I'm
you.
laughing with you. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that.
So, you know, archery is not complicated. It's very damn simple. I mean, I try to do 7 steps, and I can still get guys to win world championships and indoor nationals and outdoor nationals and world archery stuff by just doing 7 damn things simple. You know, like we go back to NFL, and I always throw everything back to football. You know, football's a really simple game. It's all blocking and tackling, and, you know, there's not a whole lot of technique about lining up and putting your face mask in the middle of somebody's face, you know, and you can say all the words you want to. But a lot of times coaches, what they try to do is they make it sound so complicated in a lot of technical terms to make you appear to, you know, to make themselves appear a lot smarter than they actually are. They're still blocking and tackling, you know.
So I'm kind of bring up an analogy. No, I don't think you did. So being in the fitness industry, I knew personal trainers that would baffle their clients with so much bullshit because they never wanted the client to feel comfortable leaving them. Right. Like they couldn't do it on their own. And the one thing I found is none of those personal trainers ever created something great. They never had a guy walk out that lost a ton of weight and stayed fit, or was a bodybuilder or a power lifter. They basically put a Band-Aid on someone and they made them keep the Band-Aid on as a semi-fix or a short-term fix. Would you say some of the things going on in archery right now that you see is a Band-Aid to a bigger problem?
It is. You know, there's a lot of things, and I see right now, and it is a Band-Aid, the biggest problem. And in fact, me and the IBO guy talk about it. You know, we're really concerned about, this is our sport. We've been doing it all our life. And what's going to happen to these guys when they hit that second level of frustration? You know, are we creating, what are they going to play then? You know, it won't be golf because golf's more frustrating. So I guess they'll take up fishing. I don't know, but I think we're killing out the archery. And I think we have a real problem now with younger guys jumping in and thinking it's going to be a 2-week deal, and, you know, and they're ready to go hunting. So We really need to stop that.
Let's talk about that, because that's one thing Tom Clum brought up to me was I shot for a year. I had decent success, and I could hit what I was aiming at sometimes. And for financial reasons and other reasons, I went back to a compound for a year. And I just didn't like it anymore. And he told me multiple times, you are not even touch it. It takes 3 years for you to start to hit your potential. Not hit it, but start to get to where you're getting to where you're seeing what you could become. You can be good in the beginning, but it takes a solid 3 years to get going. Now, I went hunting in like 3 months and was successful enough, but I also had a lot of failures. Would you say that that's a pretty good rule of thumb, where 3 years with hard work? I mean, what do you tell guys?
I'm going to argue with Tom just a little bit. I've seen guys just start out, and a year later they were shooting with world-class scores. But they had a good routine, and they had good practice habits, and they weren't always looking for an easier way. I coached a guy a few years ago. He was a military guy, and he worked hard. And he had kind of been squatting and slinging arrows. And 11 months later, after he said, I want to get really good, and I asked him, was he really sure? And he was. And 11 months later, he won a high bid world, So it's doable in a short amount of time. There is. And not arguing.
I don't think that Tom. Oh, no, I don't think you all. I think Tom would agree with you 100%. I think what he was saying was, you're going to get better. You have not peaked at a year, no matter how good you got. It's going to take you 3 potentially to hit your peak. I think he'd agree with what you'd say. I was winning a bunch of tournaments. I just think he was trying to get to me like, Aaron, it's going to take another year or two for you to figure certain things out. And for me, he was right. Like, there was other things hunting wise, like dumb shit. I grunted at a whitetail. I should have shot it at walking. I could hit a walking target walking slow at 8 yards. I grunted at it and it turned inside out. And I shot a little high, right? Just certain things like that, where there's things that will take. And so I'd say Tom would probably agree with you, because he got me to a pretty good point in a year. But would you say someone could hit their potential in a year? Is that, or would you say 2 or 3 is a little more realistic?
I've had more than one guy shoot the best they ever shot. But of course, they were dedicated to practice time then. And they were shooting about as well as they ever shot within a year. But had they had the same amount of time to dedicate for another 2 years, they might have been really good in 3 years. I will agree with that. One of my old coaches, Lenny Carndaly, of course, there's been multiple over the years. I believe in coaches. And he always said guys ought to spend 4 or 5 years on a blank belt before they shot for scoring. And I'd argue with him, Lenny, that's not even realistic. And it's not, and among most of the guys now. But
that's like kissing your wife for 5 years and not having sex.
Pardon?
I said that's like kissing your wife for 5 years and never having sex. That's just ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, it ain't gonna happen. You can make all the obligations you want to. You're gonna it's not happening.
Yeah.
Well, let
me just jump in for a second. I think that this is a seriously good point being brought up, not about the sex thing, about the young, about new people coming in, because there is a wave, and Aron is largely responsible for this wave, among others. Yeah, among others, but he's largely responsible. So these people see the success he's had. And I'm afraid that there's going to be some unrealistic expectations put on themselves, thinking that they should shoot as good as Aron and some others that are on Instagram all the time shooting. So putting realistic expectations in place, I think, is like it's knocking it out of the park for the audience, I think.
Well, everybody dances at different levels. Exceptional people can do things different than some other people. Now, that doesn't mean that some other people can't get really, really good. And and archery too is about your level. I've had a problem with this because I'm a fierce competitor sort of guy, but there's a level that's good enough for what you want out of archery, and that's okay too. Not everybody has to be a world champion or world class shooter. And maybe they can reach that, and maybe a guy that just doesn't have a knack for it, if he sticks with it for 2 or 3 years, he'll become that good solid shooter. The one that I'm talking about in a year. So I know I'm just walling around and stirring the mud now. So everyone's different.
Man, I don't know that anybody could disagree with you. If you got picked last in Foursquare in grade school, you're probably not going to make varsity as a freshman on the basketball team. I mean, some people just have better hand-eye coordination than others. But, I mean, let's just face it. I mean, sports was my thing. I can't spell shit, right? I mean, if I had to go to a spelling bee, I'm going to get my ass kicked, and there's no way I'm not going to overcome that. I'm not – that is not a strong point of mine, and hand-eye coordination – I mean, you're stuck with what God gave you, and there's no way around it. And I can't imagine anybody to argue, will I get better at spelling with practice? Yes, but I would need to have the discipline to do it, and I don't. I would say archery is probably the same way. I would think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's, not everybody is going to be dedicated enough to be that world-class shooter. And it's okay. But I see guys a lot, and I've coached some of them that were willing to settle for less than their real potential. Had they give it another year or 2 years, or not wanting to beat their buddy's ass at the local 3D. That's the problem I have with Denny and all them guys, is they want to beat the shit out of each other, so they can't get on target long enough. Hey, let me tell you a story real quick. Go ahead. I got time for my story?
No, you got plenty of time for your story, because I want to hear it, because I'm going to bring it up tomorrow when I talk to Randy.
Randy wasn't in on this so much, but Danny, when we did the first Masters is when I met Danny, and we just kind of automatically hit it off because he's a nut and I am too, and he loves bow hunting. He does, and me too, And we did some other stuff where I'd be traveling through the clinic and go by and spend the night with Danny or whatever. And I get to noticing, I get out of the truck and everybody's been warming up all damn day for you getting there, because they want to kick your ass is the only thing they got on their mind, And there used to be this guy that was his neighbor that worked for Danny. His name was Ron. And he talked more trash than anybody I've ever been around in his life. You could be beating him unconscious and he'd still be talking trash about going to kick your ass. But it was always the same thing. I'd get out of the truck and let's go. And they just can't wait to get a piece of you. It was hilarious back at time, And even when we did the Masters 5, we were up at night, and it turned out it was just me and Denny and Randy shot the next morning. And I said, well, I'm going to bed, y'all. And Denny said, well, you better get some sleep, because I'm going to kick your ass on the rust ball course tomorrow. And I just laughed. I said, y'all ain't got any idea how to beat me. And go over there. And it was truly ugly in about 4 shots. And I said, y'all ain't even going to try. But that's their mentality, And I think everybody's that way to a certain point,
Heck yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you brought this up, just because there is a massive amount of shit talking, gambling, and tournaments going on in my neck of the woods right now, with several different guys and team shoots and compound and trad teams. And the one thing that I would say, like, when you fire a shot, the way I explain it for a compound is your brain tells your right finger to punch the trigger if you're not doing things correctly. And then your brain, subconsciously or consciously, however you want to look at it, is telling your left hand to grab the bow. And there's all kinds of other shit that goes on in the middle of that. And if you can control that under pressure, right, you can perform your shot no matter what. You are probably going to win every time. And I hate to lose. I'll flip a table over in a game of Candyland. I do not like losing. So if we get done, whether I won or lost and I shot bad, and this is when you talk about dedication and the year time frame or the 2 or the 3, I would go home and I would drive my wife crazy, and she would film my hand coming against my face, coming away, my alignment, what I was doing right or wrong, and dissect that to do better next time, where most guys lose and they go home and drink a beer and they don't perfect what happened or what was good or bad. That's part of that competitive nature and becoming better, not just shooting, but correcting your issue.
And one important thing you mentioned out is coming home and working on your issues that you had that day. I see so many guys that shoot, we on the 3D course, I'm talking about down here in Alabama or the local or state level stuff, and they shoot real good for 5 or 6 shots until they have that bad shot. Now they don't know how to fix it, so they start slugging at the problem, and it truly turns into a bad day. And they go home and they're willing to do the work, except they don't know how shot. They just shooting a bow, so they don't really know what broke down, and they don't know how to fix things. And I think a lot of traditional guys is that way. They shoot until they feel better about it somehow or another, but they don't know how to fix anything. And that's one thing I try to instill in clinics and coaching is I try to turn everyone into a coach.
You just described me for probably 15 years. When I did something wrong, I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't have anybody there to, and it would take me a long time to overcome. And I don't know how I get there, but it fixed it, I know a ton of guys that will shoot as good as anybody. When they get the stars and the moon and everything's aligned, they got that one day or 1 week or 1 month, they shoot as good as anybody. Now it may be a few more years before they do it again, but they do that. And I always say that luck's one of the worst things that can happen to you, archery, because you get to thinking you can get lucky all the time,
That just happened to Luke Cadillo, and I think I've won almost $400 from him because he had that one day, and I only beat him by 6. Right. Well, then the next time I beat him by 68, and then 74, and then hell, I just beat him. I had my stick bow, and he had his compound, and I beat him by 37. But that one day just totally fucked him up because that one day he thought was going to be every day. And it could be with enough work. And that's what I try to explain to guys is, hey, if you shoot a course and you're by yourself or you're with a buddy, carry a notepad, write down shot 1, 28 yards, 20 degrees uphill, write down where you hit, write down what you were thinking, what happened. Target 2, do the same thing. And you're going to find out you probably have trouble with side hills, but you're good on flat ground. You might have trouble with small targets, not because you made a bad shot, but because you talked yourself out of hitting it because it was small, and dissect that. And that's not really, people chunk that up to the mental game. That's not really the mental game. That's the hard work, practice with good form, and just practicing and drills.
It is.
Part of it doesn't have anything to do with mental control. It just has to do with perfecting what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, because, when you're out in the woods, there's all kinds of things can happen, man. You're down here, we all in tree stand, so you got to know how to shoot those things. And most people don't even understand that it's a gravity and a distance to target from angle versus flat ground, but they don't ever do that during the year, and then they shoot over anything. You read about it on Facebook and all the forums. I shot right over his back. But had they, just like you said, if they'd had a shooter's log and kept up with what happened with every shot they took and what might have went wrong and really researched that, they would have had it all figured out time hunting season roll around.
You know, when we're talking about the drills and things like that, you know, you talked about clickers for a minute, and you know, I'm trying to get rid of my clicker just because I've been shooting without it and with it, just keeping me honest, and I'll shoot a couple of days without one, and I'll shoot with one. You know, there's a lot of other, you know, gadgets and things like that. Like one of the things that's been, you know, people have asked me about is the thumb ring. And the thumb ring, in comparison to shooting with 3 fingers on it, now if you choose to shoot a thumb ring, by all means, rub some funk on it. I don't care. But that is, to me, it's cheating if you're shooting a thumb ring. There's less pressure on the string. And it's almost like, using a hinge on a compound, because you're not releasing the string with your fingers. You're rotating that thumb ring off of the string. And if you need to do that, there's no problem with it. But to me, if somebody's shooting with the thumb ring, it's generally a form of target panic if they have to do that. And it's a way around that. Now, there's nothing wrong with shooting this one. Would you, because I tried one and I'm like, well, hell, this takes away the whole reason I'm shooting a stick bow is, you know, shooting a thumb ring. What do you think about those things for guys listening in that may want to try one, or what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it is a definite great way to shoot the bow, because we're trying to get 3 fingers or 2 fingers off the string, and we get so much string deflection for that. And when you can wrap that one thumb and shoot off a pad on it, say a leather pad or whatever you're doing, you definitely get less. It's like shooting a release. You get less string deflection right and left, so it becomes more vertical, like shooting a center shot bow. And of course, the way the arrow paradoxes is different now, so you probably need to shoot a left-handed bow if you're right-handed to do that, because it's paradox in the opposite way. But you're absolutely right. You know, if you hook and lay a finger over that nail and you rotate that shoulder around, you know, or the elbow around using the back, it is just like, in my day, they were Stanlowskis, and later on Carters, and even in my earlier days, they had hooks. They were just a little metal hook that you held in your hand, and as you rotated that elbow around, the hook jumped off the string. It's the same concept, and it works the same way. I think there's some of the organizations now are saying, hey, this is too big advantage. We can't let this go on. We got to rechange our rules, because, you know, nobody wanted to do that. But it's an advantage.
What it reminded me of back in the day, this is probably 20 years ago, this was a compound, a guy, and he was smart, but he found a loophole. He put a big D loop on his compound. He shot in a finger clasp, and he shot with just his middle finger hooked onto that D loop. And now he shot once in Vegas, and they nixed that shit immediately after, because he shot a super low poundage bow, so the one finger could handle it. He had less string contact. And so if you know, I've brought this up to guys in arguments, and they're like, well, you shoot a clicker. And I'm like, I do. The biggest difference is I'm admitting I need it to be better, and it's an advantage. You're having trouble admitting that thumb ring's an advantage, right? I mean, the clickers at least keep my draw length the same, but go ahead.
Yeah, that was kind of my point this was IBO we were talking about. Well, you know, and I was a proponent of having a class for clickers for the guys that's not going to do the work or whatever to get away from them completely. I want those guys out shooting. We're not excluding them. I just don't believe in that. But we've got a class for that. And, you know, that should be, you know, in the class for clickers. Now, the thumb ring, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in any class. You know, sorry, it doesn't.
What?
But if they keep allowing it to be legal, you know, there'll be more people shooting them, because it's an advantage.
Yeah, and I think for hunting, I don't need a clicker, because I can make several shots in a row really well without a clicker.
Right.
It's multiple days on end is where I'll run into issues, which, again, I'm trying to get to where I'm getting it off my bow completely. But hunting situations, there's no problem without a clicker. I'm only making 1 or 2 shots, and I have no issue with that. Long term is where I'm trying to get that. And the clicker's an advantage. Is it as much an advantage as a thumb ring? I don't personally think so, because when the guy goes from shooting with a thumb ring and says, man, I want to shoot fingers, it's more advantageous to bow hunting, he's going to have some issues, because it's a huge jump from one to the next. I mean, it's a problem.
And, too, I'll back up a little bit. I've trained with a clicker for 35 years now. I do it more to get that draw length exactly right, because I came from a field background, and when we're shooting 80 yards, well, you've got to have it. You can't be within a quarter, because you're off the bottom of the target, quarter short or quarter high, you high or low over the target. So they can be great trainers, but there's such a thing as being a clicker slave too,
Yeah, Randy brought that clicker slave thing up to me, which is what made me get it off my bow for a while, because I started to feel myself close up to see if that was a click to collapse. And, luckily it hadn't caught me yet, but I started watching guys shoot with one. It wasn't much of a collapse, and you wouldn't notice it. What's that?
I get film in, video clips from guys across the country, across the world, and man, that collapsing it release, not knowing how to pull through a shot without relaxing it release is a big deal, because very few people do it really well. But it is such a great way to shoot the bow, is pulling without relaxing it release. And a lot of people are pulling, they're actually using, there's a lot of arm pulling. And so when they're pulling with their arm, the fingers won't just stop holding, because it's so much tension in the forearm. So they have to try to either throw the fingers open or try to relax them. Well, they try to relax, they creep. They throw the fingers over, they creep. So, it's built in from lack of solid basic form.
When you're talking about solid basic form, Randy had mentioned to me he was talking to you once, and you had mentioned you thought that I was potentially collapsing. What were you seeing in my shot that made you think that I was collapsing, or what made you? And I'm only curious to that, because I'm always trying to get better. And people, I have videos people watching me shoot. Was it my hand coming away from the string, or something my body was doing, or what was it? If you even remember having a conversation with him about that.
I've watched you, and Lord, here I am going to get in trouble. But you've asked me, so I'll go ahead and tell the truth.
It's his puny, it's his puny little arms, Rod.
No. That's the problem, is those big, strong arms want to draw the bow versus having the back doing all the pulling. And when you do that, well, okay, you've got that tension on the forearm, so you can't get off the string absolutely crank, and the fingers have to come open. So when the fingers go open, the fingers are getting scrubbed and they're clipping out every shot. And that's what I've seen out of you. And trust me, the big, strong guys, because we're guys, we learn to do everything with our arms all our life. I mean, we've done everything with our arms, unless we've been on a rowing team. So nobody really knows how to use the run boys. But we were taught at one time to draw the bow with the back. And I think that's the best way to do it. Just draw it with your back. And when you get there, you don't have to try to transfer. You don't have to do anything. You're ready to commit, expand, aim, and get to conclusion. So, but yeah, I think that's, I think you got big, strong arms and you use them. And not being offensive.
No, and you're not going to get
what I'm saying.
Oh, no, you're not going to offend me. I hung out with a rough crowd. I'm doing it. I'm asking you because, you can get, one thing I learned with compound archery, you can get really good doing bad shit if you do it the same.
Oh,
if you do everything the same, well, in some ways, I've got a super strong bow arm, and I'm so anal retentive about my shooting that you can mimic the same bad form over and over and get pretty damn good. You could get better. And so, I've had a problem. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, that bow arm, if it's like a vise, that arrow's going to go in the same place if you screw it up exactly the same way everywhere else. I'm not saying that you're screwing it up exactly the same way or you're screwing it up, but I'm saying anybody can, and they shoot pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, Rod, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Believe me, you're not. I'm glad you're talking about it. And I've never stretched hardly a day in my life till I turned 40. And I still don't stretch as much as I should. I'm pretty bowed up. I've power lifted. And when I do drills now, I am watching for what you're talking about. I'm watching for how my hand is coming off the string, how my hand's going back, what my back is doing. Obviously I don't post these because it's goofy, but you can tell when your back's engaged from a video with your shirt off.
Sure.
And so I have worked on that because I flat out can muscle my way through a lot of things I probably shouldn't be able to. And so, you're right. And that is one thing that Tom has tried to work with me on is not using Randy and both Tom said the same thing. The problem is my bow arm's so good, it's carrying me and it's letting me get lazy in other spots. And I think you would probably agree with that from what you're saying. And I've got good enough hand-eye coordination, a good enough bow arm. I'm screwing up in other ways, but I don't suck bad enough to where it's become a problem. I'm still kind of half-assing my way through it, having other things carry me. Would you say that's a good?
Yeah, I'd say, and there's a lot of people in the same place, and they shoot really well doing a lot of things less than perfect, where me with my anal problem is I really think that those guys, I wonder how good they'd be if they were solid in all phases, if they were solid in their form, what their potential actually is, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, believe me. Well, and there are some days, as we all know, that you're doing everything a lot more. Not that righter is a word, but you're doing a lot more things righter than you are longer. And those days are the days you strive for. The problem is in my case, I can walk out and I got that short little 3-foot bear at 40 yards, and I can pretty much hit that bear at 40 yards, consistently every time. Well, that's pretty dang good shooting for a stick bow because most guys can't do that, but I could get better, right? I mean, that's the problem is where do I go from there? How do I fix it? And sometimes you plateau. That plateau may be 20 yards you hit that bear. And what I'm finding, kind of to circle back, is when people get to a certain level and they come to look for coaching or help, that some of the coaching they're getting is so baffling and convoluted that it baffles them, and it makes sense because they're like, Jesus, that guy's a genius. But in reality, he's kind of full of shit. That's my own opinion. I'm not speaking for anybody, because I've asked and seen guys for info, and I'm like, man, everything he just said really could be summed up in about 6 words. But man, he just talked for 30 minutes, and I'm confused now. Where you seem to have do a lot better job at simplifying it.
Can't do it simple. Can't explain it simply. You do not understand it well enough. Seriously.
Well, when you talk about simply, so and I'm only using me because people, I post videos of me shooting. If you were going to take me and simply explain what I would need to do to go to the next step up, I'm not talking Olympic level, just the first thing you would want me to fix, what would it be?
Well, first thing, I got a drill that would work great with you. And it's simply just drawing a bow, standing up against the bale, and start relaxing that forearm until the bow just goes off. I mean, slowly, not turning loose the string, just keep relaxing until the bow goes off. And find what tension it takes to control that bow. And you'll be amazed how little tension it takes in that arm to control the bow. You want to think of the bow arm as, or the forearm especially, is just a chain with a set of hooks on the end of it. You control everything with your back. Find that place to where it never goes off accidentally. I've got enough. All you want is tension in the hook, the hand, on the flexors in the back of the hand. Then stand up there and find that place. Now, try to learn to draw the bow with your back, and there's several different drills to get better at that, but draw the bow with your back, straight line, hand, everything in straight back. Find that place, learn to draw the bow a little bit more effectively, and release the tension, and then find that spot and see how much better you shoot. And then not only that, see how much better you tune, how much better your arrow flight is.
I would say that is one thing that I can tell better than my shooting, because I always shoot relatively well, but my arrow flight will change from time to time, which is,
right. Yeah.
Your bow's not going to come out of, your brace height's the same. There's nothing changes.
Right.
It's the shooter, the Indian
right.
behind the bow. And one thing I've noticed, as you're talking about this, as I film, you'll see my hand doing different things coming across my face. Right. That is changing that tune. And once I get warmed up or pull my head out of my ass, magically my arrow flight goes back to where it was, where initially starting that day off, I was having some arrow flight, not horrible arrow flight problems, but you can see, when your arrow kicks a little, and that makes total sense that would solve that problem.
That would be a place to fix. Now, again, you being a big, strong arm guy, that's going to be your natural tendency to do it. Like Denny, he's got arms, and it's like, and he was showing me one day, and I said, "Damn, I've never seen that much arm tension." He's what? And I said, "You don't get to use any of that." And he looked like a whipped puppy, because he is strong, and he gets it now. He still fights it a little bit, but he's still fighting. That's the biggest deal. But strong guys have that problem, is they've used their arms for everything all their life. Me too. I've had to learn to do it different, and learning to draw the bow with the back. And, and a lot of people will try to draw X percentage with their arm or whatever, and then they get to anchor and try to transfer it to back, which is a wonderful theory, except it don't ever happen. You're still shooting with your arm, So
I would say that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Pardon?
Oh no, I said sorry. Sorry. Go ahead. Didn't want to interrupt.
Oh yeah. With you, just right off the top, when you were talking about that, and I was kind of replaying the videos I've seen you shooting the bow, and you shoot the bow really well. I'm not saying that, but you're not at your potential yet. And I think the first thing is to learn how little tension it takes to hold on to that bowstring. Now, that tension you've worked out of your shot there, learn to make it go in the back. And you can do that. You can lay flat in your back. One of the best ones is lay your fingers right up at the collarbone or above it on the neck, and learn to activate that muscle. Just, you don't have to have a bow to do that. It's learn to activate it whenever you want to. And then start doing little push-ups off the floor with your elbow, using the rhomboids to pull that elbow to the floor until you can pick yourself out and do both sides, and you can get to where you can activate that muscle on demand.
That's funny.
No, that makes sense.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I had written down scap pull-ups and scap push-ups, talking about activating the back muscles.
Yeah, one thing I do with guys is we do a Foremaster, I don't know if you use one or not, good training too, by the way, and we short string it where they can't get their hands on the string, and force them to start using that back, and it's amazing. A guy comes in and he can't get his bow back any longer because he can't use the arm, and so I generally get a lighter bow in their hand, and the thing about it is, now that they can use that back, and those rhomboids are big, strong muscles. They're stronger than your forearms. It's just we've never used them, and they have to learn to. And they can actually handle more weight and actually handle it and have control over it as they develop. but you've got to get a starting place. Everyone does.
Well, they say, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I would say when you're a strong bastard, everything is blunt force trauma, right? Like everything can be solved with violence. I would say that, what you're saying, I'm digging what you're shoveling, because I can muscle my way out of just about anything.
Absolutely.
The thing is too, I got a strong back from lifting, and I've got a strong back from shooting a compound correctly. I am curious how much change it would make, and that's something that Tom had worked with me on, drawing my bow differently to engage my back immediately, which I
a rotation.
I got problems. I can muscle my way through almost anything, which is a problem, right? It'd be better if I was weaker.
If you're talking about some difference from compound, did you ever shoot a back tension release to the compound? I mean, really shoot one?
20, 30 years. Yeah, that's all I shoot.
Okay, great. Your release with a stick bow should feel no different than shooting a Stanlowski or whatever back tension you're using. You should have that same exact feeling. It should feel exactly the same.
Oh, believe me, that's why I'm not arguing with what you're saying, because it's not. Meaning, I've shot a hinge since 1990 something. I hunt with a hinge. I've used straight up back tension pressure release, where you disengage the thumb button and then just engage back in.
Relax.
I know how to operate one. Yeah, I know how to operate one of those correctly, which is why we're having this conversation, because I'm not doing it, correctly all the time, or most of the time with it. And I know, because I can hit pretty much anything I want out to any distance I want with a compound with no issues. And when I say no issues, I don't ever have back problems. I don't have shoulder problems. I don't have any issues that bad form creates, where my two fingers, my lower finger and my middle finger, which tell a lot of tales, have issues with a stick bow, because I am not releasing as correctly as I should be, because I am not engaging certain muscles like I should be. Or at least
getting scrubbed a little bit every shot. Yeah.
I got to tape my finger. Yeah, it's not good.
I do this in the clinic, walk around, show everybody my hands. I've shot a lot of arrows, and I haven't had a callus. The last time I had a callus is I hopped off and shot a compound in the early 90s, because, man, you could win money. If you win everything with a stick bow, you didn't win enough to pay expenses. So it was pretty good money, and 3D was booming. I jumped over and won the world in 92 with a compound. And I developed calluses from pulling down arrows. Everybody was going 320 back in, and it was hard to pull arrows. And I had calluses, but I haven't had a finger callus in 40 years.
Well, I've got Mount Fuji on my middle finger and Krakatoa on my ring finger. I've got calluses.
Hey, I got a buddy. We the first one I've been hearing about, and he's a good shooter, but he worked around this problem. His third finger got scrubbed every shot, and it'd been broken and didn't clean up good. And he'd have big, and he was trimming on that callus, and it'd crack open and bleed. And we put super glue on it, because I'd read somewhere about they use super glue for surgery, but we just used regular super glue, and it didn't kill him, but it worked really well.
Yeah. I use Luco tape, and I tape my fingers. I will say it's getting better. The problem is, when you like to shoot as much as I do, and I shoot 200, 300, 400 arrows a day between blind bail and distance and everything else, even when it's better, if it's not perfect, it's going to show. With shooting that many arrows, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But it's still, certainly I got a long ways to go. And that's one reason I see snap shooters shooting on a Oh, go ahead.
No, I said I get it. I was a practice monster in my days. I'd shoot 5 or 6, 7 hours every day. I wouldn't travel to a tournament or shooting a tournament every day. Never missed a day.
I just like shooting, man. It's an addiction. I like shooting more than anything. When you're talking about, we're talking about certain form issues. When you talk about like snap shooters, guys that, I've met a lot of old school guys that have to close their eyes to hold it full draw.
Right.
And, feather, finger, whatever touches their face, and they let it rip. And the thought process where they'll defend themselves, quote unquote, online is, well, I've been killing animals for, whatever, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
I don't
left out all the
deny that. Yeah, that's what I was leading up to. I don't deny that they haven't had some success. What I would say is if we go, and like we just talked about my problems, I'm not saying I'm not perfect, but if we go and we walk up to a 30 or 40 yard, take it, whatever, turkey, I will bet a large amount of money I can hit that turkey in the 8 ring, or at least hit it at 30 and 40 yards every shot, cold bore, whatever, where I've walked up to guys that have argued with me about the snap shooting, that they won't hit it one time, maybe out of 10. And that is because of inconsistency in form. And you want to talk a little bit about collapsing, shooting on the collapse, snap shooting, and where those habits lead to in that road?
Well, where I think the habit started is, somebody told them that was okay, and the person that told them that was okay, they had target panic and they couldn't stop and hold, or they couldn't get in balance pulling what I'm calling. You're just, in a Mexican standoff. The bow's not pulling you forward and you're not pulling any further back, and it gives you time to aim. And by the way, I meant to bring this up a while ago. I also in those shots, let me show you the strong thing I see you do that makes you a really good shooter in spite of some things less than perfect, is you aim that bow really well. I enjoy seeing that. You aim really, really well.
I think that's what saves me a lot.
It does.
Be honest.
The old saying, here's another archery old saying is, aimers always win and everybody else is just donating.
Yeah. Well, you know what I need to do is get the shit kicked out of me. That would certainly help, because right now, I'm a competitor and I hate to lose. Yeah. And I mean, I hate to lose. Well, I got to be honest, I need the shit kicked out of me a few times to make me dig a little deeper for shooting. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant way. I'm saying that the way my brain works.
Everybody's better after getting wore out. I mean, where somebody beats you and there wasn't nothing you could do to stop it, it cleans up your act the next day. You start working on it. And it's all about the work, man. It's all about the work.
Explain to me why you say he aims good. Explain what you're seeing.
Well, he holds the bow back long enough to really aim, and I can look in his eyes, and I understand aimers and their aim. They've got total focus on the intended target until the arrow gets there, and he does that really well.
Gotcha.
Or that's one of the reasons that you agree with that, Aaron. You aim the bow really, really well, and you've got total focus on what you want to hit until the bow goes off.
If I was to analyze myself, and I would like to hear your thoughts, I don't have target panic. I've got a strong bow arm. I don't have head movement. I follow the arrow to the target. There is no movement in my head. Well, most of the time. All of those things are correct for the most part. The problem that I have, where I think if you could put a shot caller on me, and that's the way I learned well, like every time I did something wrong, you smacked the shit out of me. That's the way my brain works. Rather than some people learn, you got to talk to them. My hand and the way that I am executing, I'm executing back tension about half correct. Yeah, I do about half right, do the other half wrong. And when you talk about an aimer, I can watch my wife shoot, and I can tell where she hits without looking at the target by what her head and her bow arm are doing. I can tell by listening to her bow, I know if she punched the trigger or not. Rod, you're at a level, you've shot so long, you can not look at the target and be like, oh shit, that was bad. Looking at a guy shooting, you can probably tell where he hit without looking at the target, I would bet.
Yeah, it's like we were talking a while ago, talking about watching a video of this and seeing this and seeing the front of the arrow. I don't need to see that. I can see what happens on the back half and know where he's creeping up front or not, So if I've screwed it up enough, I know exactly what it looks like.
Well, when we walk up to a target, like we got a big tournament this weekend, right? When I'm really focusing, I look at the target, I look at the holes in the target. Are people hitting higher? Are they hitting lower? Are they hitting left? Are they hitting right? Meaning it's a new target, meaning they might judge the target and they may be a couple biscuits hot, which is going to tell me, man, I may be overjudging this. Then I'm going to look at the side hill and the footing. Do I need to cant into the hill more? I'm dissecting all of that. And then the next thing when you do it, I draw my bow and I'm burning a hole into that target where I want to hit. And it's laser beam focused when my head is out of my ass. And generally, go ahead.
I said that's the point we used, immersed in aiming.
Yes, correct.
Burning
burning a hole in that target, and generally you're going to hit where you're aiming at. Now, what I try to translate that to is, guys, I say, hey, if you put a coffee cup on the ground and from 3 feet above it, I said, drop a quarter into that coffee cup. After 10, 15 times, they're not going to give a shit and they're probably going to miss. And I said, I'll give you $1 million if you drop that quarter in that cup 100 times in a row. That is the concentration you have to put in every shot to be a successful archer. Rod, how many people would you say put that type of hard work and focus into archery?
To reach their absolute potential and that kind of work, you're talking about worldwide or U.S.?
Let's say U.S. because coronavirus. We don't want to give any love to worldwide.
There's about 15 people in the U.S. that have that type of dedication.
And where they're at right now, would you say? They're probably firing at Olympic levels, meaning they're some of the better archers in the world, I would assume.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They can. And those same guys at one time were ruling the Olympic world. You take in the 70s, 80s, on that time, they were just, U.S. would go there. They were the Koreans of the time,
Well, and right now, bringing that up, like we haven't won in a long time in the Olympics. Like,
96.
How long did?
96.
I just had graduated. I had just graduated. I was in the Army. I just joined. And I mean, we're getting. And would you say that and if you don't feel comfortable answering this, I'm just curious. Is that the coaching, the methodology, the mentality? What is that, you think? What changed?
It's a couple different things. We've got, Olympic archery. We basically run out of shooters because everybody wants to shoot a compound. I mean, you have young guys winning 100,000 a year shooting a compound. They don't care about shooting a recurve, And then, we got really weak on coaching, and we tried to fix that by copying the Koreans, which copied us, and we didn't exactly get Korean archery, but we wound up the NTS, and it's not designed to win, put it that way.
Gotcha. And before that, they were using power archery. That's where I've been reading a lot about the power archery. And is it Keegan? Am I pronouncing that correctly, his last name?
Keegan? Yeah, Dave Keegan. Keegi. K-E-G-G-Y. I think that's how you pronounce it. Freaky. I don't know.
Well, some of the stuff is the same, right? So the basic form, right? I mean, obviously some of that's the same, but when you look at the different mentalities of coaching and the different, when I look at reading about power archery and NTS, there's some things just common sense are going to transfer over. What would you say the biggest difference in power archery and NTS are?
NTS overcomplicates everything in my deal. It's that, the shot sequence has got like, I forget the number. I think it's 17 different steps where power archery tries to do 7 really well. And,
gotcha. And those steps, list those 7 steps off before I forget. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, stance, fingers on the string. We got to get that right. We just touch a bow in 2 places. They need to be right. So stance, fingers on the string, anchor, commitment, aiming and expanding, and conclusion.
If you want to go through those step by step, I know that's probably rudimentary, but you want to talk about each one of those?
Well, we can. I think we got off a subject from the question about a while ago, but we can. It's simple. Stance is aligning the feet up, even though for 3D shooters and bow hunters, we can't always have our feet on manicured, a stadium lawn. But we try to teach your body how to do it. And the biggest thing is lining the shoulders up. We can't have the shoulders pointed left when we're trying to hit something in front of us. And that's what a lot of guys don't do. We get the shoulders lined up, head upright, relaxed. That's a big thing I do. See guys, they start out at the tournament and they look like on dress parade and everything erect. And then about 2 hours in, they get tired and they start slacking and start missing low and can't figure out why, So upright and relaxed, that's the basic things we try and do the stamps, and we'll go stance. Fingers on the string, we want to get, at least a deep hook. The hand relaxed, just enough tension to hold the bowstring, no more. Straight line from the back of the hand down the forearm. If the wrist is bent, a guy will tell me if he's going to pull it with his arm. When he hooks his fingers on the string and he cocks that wrist in, all he's showing me is he's about to use that arm. He's getting mechanical advantage to use the arm to draw the bow. So, that's a biggie. Anchors, at least 2. Anchor, and everybody's anchor's got to be different because we're different bodies. We got different length forearms, so we can't all used to everybody anchor. Well, you ask them 50 people how they anchor, and they say, well, I anchor at the corner of my mouth, and you ask them why. Well, Uncle Billy Bob said that, and I thought I was supposed to. But actually, your anchor should allow alignment. And when I talk about alignment, is the point of the elbow should line up with the point of the arrow in one line. So different body styles have to anchor to different place. As long as you can get the eye over the arrow, they all work. Upper tooth works a little bit better than lower because if you got a dip or something other, you miss high or low when you spit it out. So we try to get that deal. Things. Seriously, commitment is a biggie. And, I went into this kind of a little naive. Like one time when we did Masters 1, I was explaining gap. I was talking to Denny and them about gap, and I was naive. I thought everybody understood how to aim the bow. If they wanted to, how to, and how it worked. And I looked at these guys, and they got that deer in the headlight looks on them. I realized they didn't understand it. So they said, hey, draw that out. And I drew it on. And that was one of the most popular things in Master 1, and it was a pure accident because I naively thought that, everybody already understood the simple stuff, like that. And we get right back to the same thing is I thought everybody had a commitment, some a go or a no-go, or, you flip the safety off or whatever in some kind of shot. And then I found out very few people actually had a commitment. They drew the bow and it was going off. And a friend of mine told me, oh, he had a commitment. When his hand hit that bow, it was going off. He was going to shoot the damn thing, So I really had to back up and because I was naive about it and really start emphasizing commitment, And target panic guys, if you can develop a commitment and not shoot that bow until you ask your chef this question, is this shot arranged and can I maintain control long enough to reach conclusion? And if the answer is yes, well, there's nothing left to do but commit, aim and expand and get to conclusion. If the answer is I don't know, I ain't sure, maybe, the only logical thing to do is let that bow down, let it down right then, because as long as you keep shooting them bad shots, the subconscious is going to keep shooting them, you know. But the subconscious is amazing. When you quit letting it do bad things, it quits trying to do bad things. You know what I mean?
No, that makes total sense.
So you just quit shooting the bad shots, you know. I've told people this a lot. You know, I go down to Alabama to shoot the average guys, and they miss a lot of stuff. And we spend a lot of time hunting arrows and things like that. And I'm one of those guys that watch, you know, see what I watch things. And I've watched them and shoot like, you know, 25 rounds, shoot it 5 or 6 times in 2 days, and nobody let the bow down a single damn time. Now, these are average guys, and I love them, but they're not great shooters, you know, just average shooters. And they never let down, but they miss a lot. If you shoot world-class shooters, they'll let down 25% of the time, maybe more, because they're not going to shoot those less than perfect shots anymore. And I've tried to do that hunting. You know, I hunt whitetails mainly, and, you know, if you don't make a bad shot, you may, with a little luck and God's grace, get another shot at him. If you scare him real good or wound him, it's done. You're not going to get it. So letting down the bow is a smart thing. You know, you may get another opportunity versus a shot you're going to screw up. So, you know, I've installed that with whitetail hunting. Only shoot the good shots.
You have to on your cracked out Alabama deer. I can tell you that from my first-hand knowledge. Those deer are quick. But after you kind of listed those off, kind of go back now to the difference of, you know,
I didn't list all
the power archery and the. I thought that was 6 or 7 then.
No, we didn't get that. It's, you know, commitment, and then you got to aim and expand. That's the only time you do things. Then you start expansion. You know, you're in balance pulling. 3 phases of pulling. You got excessive pulling, where you're really using a bag to get to anchor. You got balance pulling. Say if your bow's 55, you got to pull 55 and a half or 56. If you don't, you're creeping. You know what I mean? So there's no holding. That's one thing different with compound is there's no holding. Good compound shooters do use, you know, balance pulling, but you know, you're pulling more than the bow's pulling forward, because, you know, the stick string is always going to be pulling forward. So you have to get in balance pulling, and then you've got increased in pulling or expansions, the third phase. So there's no point you're not pulling. It's just different phases of pulling. You're aiming and expanding, and you aim, and I'm a big believer when it all works good is that subconscious release. You just aim, pull, pull, pull until the shot breaks, and it'll go off all by itself without you having to say, I want to shoot this shot now. Because once you say, I want to shoot now, you just anticipate it, and you're going to anticipate more and more and more and more. Kind of like shooting a rifle. Do you ever try to jerk a trigger and try to make it go off now, or you try to squeeze until it breaks?
I try to squeeze till it breaks, but I've had a lot of training.
Right. That's the way that's the way that works really well. You know, if you say, I want to shoot now, well, you know, we're just going to start an action, which is expanding, aiming, and allow the shot to happen during action. And that way we don't have to say, oh, I won't let this go, because that's where the collapse comes in. Every shot is, you know, or one of the reasons is because we anticipate the let go and quit pulling, you know. And then I got conclusion. You know, like I said, in conclusions, simplest thing in the world. All we got to do is we've got to have perfect follow through. We've got everything in play, or we should have all the muscle groups. Everything's in play. All we got to do is maintain it long enough for the air to get off the bow where we don't have an effect in it. And, you know, I use a shoulder touch because I come up shooting field, and, you know, if you help without any relaxing for 80 yards, you get wore out. But seeing the air hit the target, anything it takes longer to do. But we've got that perfect follow through already built. All we have to do is just not allow changes for a millisecond after the shot breaks. Simple enough.
Yeah. No, I mean, makes sense. So, knowing knowing from what I've read from power archery, and then what obviously I've been taught with NTS, and going over the steps you just went through, what are those? Because there's, which I don't follow them all, but I think there is 16, 17, or 18 steps with NTS, whatever it is.
It's a pile.
Kind of finish off what the differences are, and then where you think that speed bump is with the NTS.
Well, it's a couple things. It's overly complicated to do a simple action, and again, I've coached a lot of guys. It's level 3s, level 4s. Got some friends that's level 3s and 4. I'm not being derogative at all. I'm just saying what I think the downfall is. And 2, the biggest one is they don't want to aim the bow, and you get by with some of that with a compound and sights, or with a recurve with sights. But bare bows is an illusion. If you're not aiming, you got a problem. All right, everybody got quiet again.
Oh no, I lost you for a sec. Sorry, you repeat that?
Oh, well, let's see. I was talking about it was too complicated, too many steps to, very complicated steps to do a simple action.
No, I lost you when you were talking about aiming. NTS in comparison.
And NTS, the whole deal of not aiming, and we're doing that with a compound. Compound guys don't say aim, use your conscious mind to execute. Well, you should be able to execute subconsciously, because subconscious can handle several different actions perfectly, and the conscious mind can do but one. So we need to aim with it, and that's all it needs to do. You get by with it somewhat with sights, because you have got a sight, and the subconscious is going to aim some anyway. But bare bow, we're doing. Bare bow aiming, even gaps and illusion. We need to be aiming, and the subconscious is a great aimer. I learned that years ago when I was shooting a compound. I had an aiming day that I'd go out back, and I shot at my buddy's, which is a few miles down the road, and I lived in that time a townhouse, and I could shoot 43 yards across the backyard. But anyway, I had a brand new target and a Stanlowski, and my goal was just to aim, not necessarily to put that fiber optic, 3-fire Zeiss scope right in the middle. It was just my mental focus on the aim. And over the day, how a hinge or, back tension, you get too far in it and it goes off and scares you a little bit. Well, during the course of the day, in about 4 or 5 hours, I had 4 or 5 go off, and I had a brand new target, and I had one hole in the target, because all those shots were pure because I was just aiming. I didn't mean for them to go off, so I couldn't anticipate. I couldn't screw it up. I just aimed, and even though the sight pin wouldn't on the center, the subconscious would make that correction, and we'd go in the center, because that's where my focus was on the middle of the target. You've done the same thing with a all-fan rifle several times.
So a good analogy, or a good kind of bring this home for people, when an elk comes in and you shoot it in the rack, that's because your subconscious was looking at the horns,
right?
Not even though you
Absolutely.
wanted to hit it in the lungs. That is why, and man, I agree with you 100%, and that's one of the reasons I work on aiming, and I do the same thing you're talking about. I would set up, when I shot a compound, 5 different releases at different speeds, and one of them would not go off at all. Like you couldn't. It was set to. Hell yeah, it kept you really honest, and it sucked. But what it did was it kept you aiming all the time and burning a hole in that target, which is I've tried to carry over to the stick bow. Now you get these chuckleheads on forums and online and shit, which I got off of all of them, that go to the pure side of traditional archery, that aiming and gap shooting is the devil. And I usually just make smart ass comments back and say, what do you have hitting? What do you have against hitting what you're aiming at?
Yeah.
When I'm gap shooting, and I guess I'm asking you what you do when you gap shoot, because people ask, Are you using split vision? Are you doing this? And I'm like, well, if I'm aiming at 37 yards, I know that my point, my insert covers the armpit of the target, or in this case at 37, it covers the 10 ring. So let me say 34 yards, where my arrow's covering the armpit of the target. I'm not aiming at the armpit of the target. I just know that I just am looking through that arrow, and I know it's there, but I'm looking at the 12 ring. I'm looking where I want to hit. Can you explain?
Absolutely.
Because I don't even know if I'm telling guys the right shit. Can you explain that?
Well, that's the way I do it, and I really think it works better is to use your secondary vision to aim. You know, like I had it when I was shooting 3D. I had a different gap for every 2-yard target. You know, I had a different gap for a 28. I did a 30. I had a different gap from a 34 and a 36. But with practice, you know, you can get real good at, and I did it in inches, like 20 inches, 18 inches, 14 inches. You know, it's like a carpenter. If you need a brace and tell him to cut 1 2 foot, you know, and it's not length critical, and he takes the sawman and he'll whack one off and throw it up to you, and it's amazing how close they are to 2 foot. You know what I mean? It's just practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a good joke here, but I can't tell. But anyway, go on. But I do believe in total, and you know, and the traditional guys are right. Burn a hole. Well, you know, I really believe they're using, you know, subconscious aiming method where I'm using a conscious. I know I'm burning a hole, and I know how far to set that point, you know. And that way, you know, uphill or downhill, target leaning forward or back, or however it's set, you know, I've got a correction for that. But the main thing is I don't want to get away from is that aiming and burning a hole in that target. You know, we call it immersion aiming, but burning a hole is the same thing. Aimers always win. Everybody else is just donate.
So, while we're talking about this, and man, I got to thank you again for coming on here, because I really like BSing about this stuff, because I'm anal retentive about all the different things, and it's one of the reasons why I fell in love with traditional archery, with all this stuff. When you are like you talk about the split vision, and there's all kinds of videos and shit about all the different aiming methods. My thing that people need to understand is, if you get a good shot, and again, like Rod brought up, I don't personally have a perfect shot, but I'm decent enough. I will put tape across the target, 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 45, 50 yards.
Right.
That horizontal tape line is because I'm figuring out my gap. I'm figuring out where I need to aim above or below. I do the exact same thing you do. I got 2-yard, 3-yard increments where I need to aim above and below. And what I do is, let's say I'm at 28 yards. I'm going to figure out at the 30-yard and the 25-yard marks. I'm going to figure out where my drop is at 30, and I'm going to figure out how high I hit above at 25. What that allows me to do, and I can judge yardage well. Go ahead.
Oh, the target you're talking about, tape across it. I've got one out. I've got an indoor range here, private indoor range on my farm, and I've got one on target right now. You know, it's like when I get time to practice now, I work on it weekly. Knowing what 20 inches looks like, knowing what 24 or 16, knowing how to set my gap on the target. You know, I do it in 6-inch increments from center target down to the bottom of the bale. So same thing you're doing. Go ahead. Excuse me.
No, I'm so well. I learned a lot of this shit from you and your videos. So when people do that, if you execute a good shot, and one thing Tom said, when you're shooting with hope, that's all it is. It's hope, right? But when you execute a good shot, I know that I can walk up when my head's out of my ass. I can walk up to a 28 to 34 yard. I can hit a Copenhagen lid pretty much every time, or a softball at 28 to 30 yards. in practice. I know my drops, I know my gaps.
Right.
Well, that's when my head's out of my ass. But that keeps me in the 10 ring. And so when that keeps me in the 10 ring, well, people have to realize if they're doing that in practice and they're not doing that when it comes to a tournament, that is, basically that's they're probably a target panic or they are having issues with their form, they're collapsing or whatever else. So this is what I'm leading up to here is you are never, ever, ever going to be able to shoot consistently without good, form, because you're not even going to know where your gaps are. You're not going to know where you hit, you have a loss of confidence. When you have a loss of confidence, everything goes to shit. Right. Would you agree with the majority of what I've said, or would you change anything?
Sure. Absolutely. And the terrible thing about it, I'm seeing guys when they on a roll without a real solid aiming method, they go out and all of a sudden they shoot a target high, say for instance, and you just, they're doing the same thing in the woods. We're just seeing it more, on 3Ds and stuff. And they shoot a target high. Well, they don't know exactly how to correct that, Did they miss a yardage? Well, they don't judge yardage. Okay. I shot high. I don't know what happened. Now the confidence is gone for the rest of the damn day, Where a guy with a wave, well, he shoots 6 inches high. He knows he missed a yardage, He just missed a yardage or the target was leaning, the target moving. It's a simple mathematical equation now to correct that for the next target. It's just like that. So he's got a way to fix things. So his confidence don't get ruined on the bad shots,
Yeah, and yesterday I shot against a guy, and he had his compound. I had my stick bow, and normally we shoot against each other from the compound stakes, and I'm usually within a few points. It's close. Well, I got him to bet me yesterday. I shot from one stake in from the compound stake, which is 28 to 35 yards on average. Well, that's my wheelhouse, because that is the easiest for me to put my point. And I hope to God he doesn't listen to this, because I want to keep taking money from him. But for me, this distance doesn't bother me out to a certain degree. Like, I don't have issues hitting softballs, or paper plates or whatever out to 40 yards. My issue is when I start to gap, when I'm too close, the arrow is quite a bit below. Yeah, there's a big gap. So 28 to 34, 35 yards, I'm not worried about hitting a softball. It's easier for me for double vision or split vision, split vision, for that point to be at the knee, the armpit, or right in the body, because my point on right now is 35, 36 yards. Well, even when you go to 40, I put my insert on its back for most, most targets. That's pretty much, because I copied you, that's pretty much exactly what you do, isn't it?
It is. It is. On the side note,
you probably didn't know that, but you had a video. Go ahead.
Yeah. I got a shooting partner and shot with him for years and years. Really good shooter, and he had about a 50-yard point on. Long draw, shot light arrows. He had about a 50-yard point on. He had problems with the 20-yard shots. But back then, IBO shot 45 yards plus or minus 10%. And, they didn't have any qualms about setting Jake Turkey up at 45 and quarter him a good bit. He just beat everybody to death, And we'd get guys come over and shoot with us some, and we had 28 McKenzie's at his house. And the first thing he'd do is back off, and he'd just shoot 50 yards all day long. So somebody just keep crying till he'd make him go up, because, they'd man up and try to hang with him, and he was point on, and they was way over by then. So, that's the trick. Being in your point on is, and you can adjust the point on a little bit too, but different subject we'll go over later.
I shortened my point on because when I first started shooting, I had a 40-yard point on, and I actually got it closer, because initially I was so worried about distance because I was dropping animals at 80, 90, 100 yards, and with the compound. So immediately when I went to a stick bow, I'm like, shit, God forbid I learn how to hunt, right? I'm like, man, I got to shoot as far as I can. Well, then I learned how to hunt better, and all my shots were 6, 7, 8 yards out to 22, 23, and just a couple of them were farther. I'm like, well, shit, I really need to get my point on closer. So I changed my obviously point weight and spine, and got the system I wanted it at 35, which has been a huge benefit for 3D tournaments, just because my gap's not as big.
Right. I guess it would be unethical not to mention that you can miss those 6 and 7 and 8 yard shots too without a good solid shot.
Talking about that, I have more trouble with
you can, but you can miss us. You can miss us short shots too. Guys do it all the time.
Well, I don't have trouble with ones that are that close, but I tell you, like 14 to 18 yards there for a long time was my nemesis. I stopped in on a mule deer in Alberta, and I came over the hill, and it was at 16 yards, and I shit you not, I looked back to see if I could back up, because the deer had no idea I was there, and I'm like, oh, good God, this is the worst range it could be. And I killed it, but I've worked on it a lot since then. But, when you're green, shit, I just started doing this, right? I'm learning shit every day. So it was one of those things where I'm like, man, I feel a hell of a lot better at 24.
Don't get me wrong. I wasn't speaking about you could miss a 6 or 7 yard shot. I've seen you shoot enough in video. I know better than that. But I'm saying the general public, without a solid shot sequence and the way to shoot the bow, it's very doable to miss an 8 yard deer. People do it all the time. So and the shot sequence just important is 8 as it is at 40. Put a shot.
Well, and
over time.
I was agreeing with you, because it's amazing what the subconscious does and how much it can crush you as well as the conscious. I mean, and I think people have trouble differentiating the two, what your subconscious and your conscious, how they screw you over differently, but both of them are bad. When you consciously know that you suck at close targets, your subconscious can take over and really just fuck you up, because I would have a target that with no pressure, I could hit 16 to 18 yards and be fine. Well, then I would look, and I would overcomplicate it, and then my form would go to hell in a handbasket. And it wasn't target panic. I had a couple guys say, well, that's target panic. And it's like, no, I'm not flinching. I am just executing a piss poor shot. I'm not scared to shoot it. I don't have shot anticipation. It doesn't have shit to do with the bow going off. I'm just not focusing on what I should. Right. Probably because it's too close, and people think it's a gimme as well, and they slough off their form. Would you say some of the close shots are from that, where they're like, it's a gimme, and then so they really lax on their form?
And it absolutely is. You don't take them seriously. You just kind of halfway go through it, because we're generally, human beings are lazy, and we just do what we have to. And we think at a longer shot we have to really work at it, but we don't. We'll just kind of halfway go through it until we miss, and then oh shit, how'd that happen? Well, we didn't set it up to succeed. One of the best shooters in the U.S., I coached him. And I got to notice him, we shot several shots that day, and he was shooting the close targets. He had a totally different form than he did a 40-yard shot. And I said, let me ask you something, Heather. I said, the point value count the same on a 10-yard shot as it does a 40? Well, yeah. I said, have you ever left any 15-yard 11s on a course? Well, of course I did. Well, and this goes back to, I said, well, that 10-yard shot's just as important as a 40. So it demands the same attention to detail. And that's one of my big deals is develop a shot and shoot the same shot every time. Shoot your same shot exactly the same way every time. And if you don't hit, you learn from it, But if you're doing something different every time, you don't learn anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. And I'm curious, Rob, as you're listening to Rod and I babble back and forth, what are you thinking of all this? Because you didn't really have this up where you were. You didn't have a coach or anything else. You kind of just figured this out on your own. Rob, what are you thinking about all the talk about this back and forth?
So first off, I started making notes, but then I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait until I edit this because, I mean, right off the bat, I was picking up nuggets that just good stuff. But, Rod, when you said that, guys don't know what they did wrong and they go back and they just try to hammer through it. And,
Right.
and I said that's me. Yeah, that was me to a T because we didn't have, or I didn't have anybody to show me. So, and honestly, I was intimidated going into this, Rod, because this is out of my wheelhouse, this kind of level of shooting. But you've broken it down into steps where I can start to understand. It's just the little things, just working on little things. Right away. Yeah, right away when you said how athletes at every level work drills, right? You work on little drills, putting the whole play together. I mean, that's astounding to me, to think about working on one sequence of your shot. And maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe everybody else knows this, but when I hear it, I go, wow, that's revolutionary to me. So I'm pretty stoked. I'm stoked to edit this. And it's just a lot of knowledge here for sure.
Well, in my case, you can't screw up things forever and you'll eventually figure it out. But, and look, I'd be no different than you. I've told this story 100 times. I'm not going to tell all of it, but I started seeking out those guys that really knew how to shoot above. And we're talking about early 70s, or in 70s. And they weren't bow hunters everywhere then. They weren't deer everywhere, and because under pressure, I would fail. And I found the best shooters and I found the best coaches, and it was all about not wanting to miss ever again, So without seeking out those coaches and being coached basically seems like all my life now, I wouldn't be any different than anybody else, I'd still be struggling for some answers, and I still hunt for answers. I'm not saying perfect by any means, but I'd be struggling for the same answers that the average guy's hunting for.
Well, thanks for breaking it down into little tidbits for knuckleheads like me to digest.
Yeah. Well, a guy made a compliment to me on kind of a little, I think on the push, a little documentary deal. And he said, one of my great details or great strengths in coaching was, there was a lot of people had the technical deal, is I wanted to keep it simple. And he said, and I was real good at just giving them what they had the ability to accept at that time.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. You take a 4-year shooter, well, you're trying to teach him the same thing you are a new shooter, but you give him more details on the same thing.
Yes. And like I said, it's, intimidating with your long list of accomplishments through your career as a coach and a shooter. I was mildly intimidated, to say the least. But
yeah, if you seen me coaching my granddaughters, you wouldn't be that impressed. They're not. I know.
Well,
that sounds like my 13-year-old.
Women at all ages.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an ongoing joke with my wife and I, is her saying "I know" and her aunt and her mom is "I know," and now it's an ongoing joke between everybody in the family, actually.
One of my friends, he's a world champion, and his wife was a multiple world champion. but she just did stuff. He'd tell her do this and do this. And he'd say, would you go talk to her? She don't listen to nothing I say. She'll listen to everybody but me. Would you go get her straightened out? And, you know, we kind of come up with, don't ever coach anybody you're sleeping with, because it ain't going to work out.
I would agree. Or any kind of housing projects or building anything. Don't tackle that one either.
House and did it without a woman. It was so unstressful.
I gotta add one more thing, Rod. I've done a pile of podcasts with Aron, and I gotta say, this is about the most excited that I've ever heard him get during a podcast. So, I mean, that speaks to who you are. It was my plan to step back and let him roll, but he's pretty excited. He was gobbling it up for sure.
Well, I'm enjoying.
Yeah, I was. I appreciate it.
I hope my accent hadn't been too hard to understand. You ever see me go to Australia and coach those guys? My accent and theirs, we just took us 3 days to learn what anybody was saying. But
don't worry.
Simple stuff. Aron's got an edge that not everybody has, you know, and you may have not know it, but I can take a shooter of any kind of shooter, and I can talk to that guy, and I can make a good recurve shooter out of a guy that is a really good shooter of anything. Now, there's a lot of people shoot a lot, not really good shooters, but I'm talking about shooters that understand being a shooter. Aiming is a big thing.
Yeah. Well, man, you about done pestering him, Aron?
Yeah, I'm done.
For now?
I probably will pester you over the phone later on, Rod, if you don't mind.
I don't.
And you can tell me that joke.
My life's about bow hunting and shooting, so it's what I do every day. Give me a call.
Where can people find your? How can they find your clinics? Where else can they find your coaching?
Well, that's a problem right now. You know, I used to do everything on Safari Tough, but since Randy has bought Safari Tough and running it now, I haven't rebuilt the website. I meant to, but we had the Corona deal and don't know where we're going to go. And clinics I got to do them different. Used to, we do a clinic and they'd advertise on all the forums. Hey, we're going to do a Rod Jenkins clinic here or whatever. But now a guy called me with a clinic and he's already got, and we'll do a minimum of 12, and he'll have 12 before they call me. So, and a lot of people don't get involved in that way, and I'm going to do better. But the best way is always just to call my cell phone number, and it's still on Safari Tough website. Or it's pretty easy to find.
You don't want that shit on my Instagram page, Rod. I can tell you that right now. So don't announce your phone number, because
I didn't.
You will not like the amount of phone calls you get. Yeah, I'd edit that shit off of Safari Tough possibly too, Rod. You'll hate me. I won't share that on my page.
Well, Rod, I don't know if you noticed it, but about every 35 seconds, I could hear Aron's phone buzzing with another message.
Yeah,
it's bad. But
yeah, so in some days that day was the day for me, but now instead of business, we're talking about archery, and it's always fun. Enjoy it.
Right on. Well,
thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it more than you know. It was good chatting with you.
I enjoyed it. Good meeting you all. No joke. Because I think Aron and I was going to be at the same place, except you were going to Kalamazoo, and Kalamazoo generally is our peak or rut. So I don't go all the time.
Well,
I wouldn't either.
You stick around when we end this. Stick around. I want to hear the joke.
All right. I'll do it.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks for all your time. This was a great episode.
All right.